So we'll go ahead and just, I guess, ask, what have you guys heard about the Men in Black? Have you heard anything about the conspiracy theory? Have you only heard about the movie? What have you guys heard about that? And then I guess since Mage had mentioned it a little bit earlier about the gadget in the movie that makes you forget everything, is there something that you would like to forget if you could forget something? Or you don't have to say what it is, but would you want to use it to forget something, or do you think that it's more important to keep that memory alive? So that is the question we're going to start with, just to kind of get us warmed up. You guys know I'm a teacher. Gotta warm me up. Gotta heat up those skull noodles, okay? So we'll get that going. While you guys are doing that, I'll try to find a nice white background for me to kind of make us look a little brighter, huh? Is that better? Let's see, we'll do that. That might be better. And I'll just kind of arrange what we got going on here. Great. Yes, Summer, you are just in time. You know what, Ratsa, maybe I should mention, just write it down. So number one, have you heard of the Men in Black conspiracy theory? Number two, if you could erase some part of your memory using the MIB movie device, would you? Or do you think it's more important to have that sad or painful memory? Okay. So those are the two questions. I mean, if you saw the Men in Black movie and you wanted to talk about that, you could maybe mention something briefly, but that's really not what we're looking for. And even when we typed in the Men in Black conspiracy, it still ended up with the Men in Black movie. Okay, heard of the Men in Black in passing before the movie, but not a specific conspiracy. Anything else? I was told by this person who does, he works with schools, that one of the problems with teachers is, I guess, the average time a teacher waits after asking a question is less than 1 second. It's like 0.9 seconds. So they'll ask a question, then immediately answer it, and so they said, of course that doesn't facilitate answering. And I just thought, how could you? Why would you ask a question and answer it for your students? To me, that doesn't make sense. So I know it does make the live streams a bit, I don't know, maybe, hopefully not too difficult to listen to, because there's so much of that dead space, but hopefully that'll be all right. Let's see. Yes, a lot of times, no, I'm with Butters from South Park about that stuff. Okay. I do know that reference. Actually, I just watched that episode maybe last week, actually. I have a few memories that I would delete, but I wouldn't delete all trauma or bad memories. Experience is a long list of stupid things you no longer do, so deleting memories wouldn't be helpful. I've heard slight mentions of the conspiracy in passing, mostly lumped in with SCP stuff. There aren't many memories I want to delete, but they aren't significant, more like annoyances. I feel like erasing your memory would affect your judgment of future situations to the future. Unfortunately, I'm an advocate for making mistakes and learning from them. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I agree that we should learn from our mistakes. I don't know about not what doesn't kill me makes me stronger, because I definitely am weaker now that I have these migraines. But that is sort of what I try to tell my students, is when we're getting, sometimes you got an F, it's not the end of the world. Think about all the other stuff that you're going to have to turn in. This is one F among so many things. It's not going to affect your grades so badly. But it is a notification that whatever you did for this was not correct, and you need to figure out why that happened. And usually it's like, oh, I didn't study because XYZ. Okay, well, how would you deal with XYZ in the future? It's good to know how to do that. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of any memories I would want to delete, and I don't know. I feel like some memories perhaps don't serve to help me in any way. But then again, I have this this saying that there's no such thing as useless information. There's just information you're not using right now. And so I feel like that would be unfair. So the MIB conspiracy goes back, gosh, 1950s, 1960s. That's when people had started talking about it. And it's usually in related to UFOs, which is why we see things like this, where we've got that flying saucer in the background, and these as well. So usually people will report being visited by the men in black after they have started speaking about a UFO sighting, or there were some cases where somebody had reported that they crashed into a UFO or had some other like the UFO had landed in the middle of the street and they actually crashed their car into it, or that there was some other physical interaction. And in the case of the person who had crashed their car, they actually took a piece of the material with them. And so in cases like that, there are people who allege that the men in black will visit them at home and ask them, you know, hey, you should stop talking about this, or you need to give us this thing. Some people say that they're government workers. Other people say that they are demons in disguise. And still others claim that they appear to be perhaps alien beings that are in some type of human disguise. So of those, let's just kind of break this down, because you guys can watch any other videos about the Men in Black, and so I don't want to just say this is the Men in Black history. I just kind of want to analyze it in terms of how realistic is this. So let us assume for a second then that demons are real and that aliens have visited us. Okay, so we will assume that. All right. Do you think that they would actually bother coming to your house? So let's see what you guys have written. Adding to number 2, I have super sad memories, of course, but no actual trauma. So that might be different for people who have worse memories. Yes, I think so. Yes, student, you got an F. It stands for fantastic. Do better next time so you get an A for amazing sauce. Yeah, anytime I give an F or a 0, I tell the students it doesn't have to be permanent. It just lets you, it's a notification that, hey, something happened. Maybe you thought you turned in the assignment, but you actually didn't. Maybe you thought you did a good job and you actually did poorly because you didn't follow the directions. Maybe you forgot it and now you see, oh no, I didn't even notice that there was an assignment due, and now I have a 0 on it. I will do it now and turn it in late, and gosh, I better make sure to really check on that stuff in the future. You know, so it doesn't have to be permanent. You know, there's always a way to fix it, unless it's like a end of the semester final exam. Then you can't really fix that. But you can still improve if you have, you know, if it's the end of the semester as opposed to the end of the year. Then you can still improve. The best pasta needs an amazing sauce. All right. I would want to erase experiences, not just the memory. As a person with memory issues from trauma, losing memories is problematic. You know, honestly, with the situation with migraines, you know, it really affects your cognitive functions in a lot of really interesting ways. And I have, you guys may have heard me discuss, I think I mentioned it at the last Cafeteria Club live stream, which was, did we do that? And I think I was talking about the migraine video. I didn't remember if I made a video about migraines or not, and I actually had to go double check. I was pretty sure. I was 80% sure, I would say. But 20%, you know, was it a memory? Was it a thought that I had and kind of went through it in my head but didn't actually do the video? Am I thinking of the video I did before but not the video I had wanted to do and thought I uploaded? Did I set it to so I wasn't really even sure what had happened. Whether or not they would bother coming to your house depends on how much they have to lose if they don't. What are the stakes? I don't believe aliens are here on Earth. Sorry for being boring, so I don't see why the MIB would care about me. That's fine. I also don't have any evidence to follow that would suggest that aliens are here on Earth, but I am saying to just assume that is the case for the purpose of these questions. Let's see. I believe most aliens are extra-dimensional beings, and people with schizophrenia can perceive other realities. That's why crazy people see aliens all the time. Unless, of course, my neighbors were aliens, but they would probably be discreet and not bother me. Not really sure if they'd come to have a casual conversation with you. I don't think they trust pleas with their bargains to shut up. I am nodding, like you can see it. Skull noodles are rattling about. Exactly. I'm glad the skull noodles thing is catching on. That's my thing. Feel free to use it. So that's interesting, Cynostic, about the concept of extra-dimensional beings. I don't know if... I guess I would say if we had to look at the two, only the two, which one seems like it would be more plausible? An extra-dimensional being that is sharing our space, but we just can't see them because they're in a slightly askew dimension that we cannot perceive. Or if aliens had traversed very long distances in, spaceships to get here, I think the extra-dimensional beings would make sense. I don't know how schizophrenia would necessarily allow you to perceive another dimension, though. So that's not... I don't know if I could go with that. You'd have to explain that a little bit further. But I do know that there are... I know that because of the way that a lot of hallucinations are perceived, it appears to be human in some form, including auditory hallucinations. And I don't necessarily mean just brain damage or drug use or something like that, but even things like you just didn't get enough sleep last night, you're really hungry, something like that. You can see or hear what appear to be human or human-like hallucinations. And so I would wonder, in those cases, is it just a byproduct of the brain and sort of like freewheeling pareidolia? I'm not sure if that's the exact pronunciation for it, but the concept of seeing things or seeing human shapes where there are none. Let me go ahead and type that. So this kind of thing, right? So if we're hallucinating and there's maybe something in the background, but our eyes just are not focusing very well, and we kind of bring it to the foreground, I think that it makes sense for us to perceive human-like shapes while we're hallucinating, whatever is causing the hallucination. So I don't think that we would necessarily... If there are extra, which I'm sure there's extra dimensions, but if there's beings that live in those extra dimensions, I don't know if hallucinations in and of themselves would lend to us being able to perceive those extra dimensions. Let's see what you guys are saying here. I'm really trying hard to assume that there are aliens here and MIB is running around catching aliens. No, Ratza, not the MIB is running around catching aliens. The Men in Black are the aliens. That's what they're saying. So there is an idea that the Men in Black are either government workers, they are some kind of demon, or they are aliens in human disguise. And any of those reasons, or any of those incarnations, the reason they visit you is to ask you to, or to put pressure on you to stop talking about a UFO encounter that you had. So if I had said, hey, I saw a UFO and something fell out of it, and, this is what it was, and oh my gosh, I can't believe it, this is from a UFO, and I don't know what to do, and I started talking about it with people, posting about it on the internet, I would get a knock on my door, or so the conspiracy theory goes, and 2 people would be there, dressed in black, similar to these guys, And those people might be government workers that are human, some type of demon, or some type of alien in human disguise. So that's what we're talking about. Not the movie Men in Black, where they have to go monitor aliens that are immigrants coming here and living among humans. So not like that. But I guess similar to that, where they would show up to your house and blank your memory because they don't want you to remember witnessing the UFO. Sort of similar to that, perhaps. I believe that Tyra Banks is actually a space alien, so is Stephen Miller. Okay, if you have any, want to describe that. Let's see, Tommy Wiseau is definitely from another planet. Okay. If anybody's an alien, I vote for Elon Musk. All right. Linda Moulton, how could we possibly be alien from outer space? Okay. So we're not trying to guess. So assuming the MIB conspiracy is true, and assuming that the Men in Black who ask you to stop talking about UFO encounters, assuming they are aliens, that doesn't mean that aliens live here. Remember, it's not like the movie Men in Black. So the movie Men in Black is different. These are just guys that show up at your house and threaten you into silence. Okay, that's who these guys are. That's all it is. That's all they do. They don't have the thing to blank your memory. That was just about the movie. We just kind of wanted to get you guys chatting. So the Men in Black show up to your house to threaten you into silence about your UFO encounter, and then they go away. That's it. That's it. Let's see. Going with it, it's interesting that people on ayahuasca and psychedelics describe similar experience in beings. Yeah, and it's some of them, they say it's, from their memory, like a past person that they maybe have to resolve issues with. And so these are not like seeing another dimension, it's just more of visualizing a memory for those certain types of, I guess you would call them trips. The evidence of aliens are a few photos of humans wearing suits and hats. You know what? Thank you, RJM. Yes. That's it. Okay, that's these guys, and these guys. So these guys are a very famous set. That would be the evidence. The rest of it is claims. So before we had this footage, and again, this had started around the 50s and the 60s, it was people that had claimed this. They said that when the people show up at their house, they look human, but they're not really human. They appear to be very identical. They are missing all of their hair, it appears. So there's no eyebrows, there's no eyelashes, and there's no hair on their head that would be peeking out of a hat because they tend to wear hats. But you would still have some of that hair coming out the bottom or something. So they don't have any hair on their heads at all. That they look very, very identical, whether they're twins or whatever, and they speak in a very, they say robotic, but quite frankly, I mean, having been in the military, I think a lot of people think that we speak in a robotic way, so I don't blend any, I don't think speaking in a robotic way to the average person necessarily means that you're talking to a robot or that you're talking to an alien. I think they're just not used to hearing that type of thing. Let's see. The MIB come knocking telling me the crashed UFO was a weather balloon. I would honestly probably just buy that story straight up. Yeah, that's true. The UFOs to remain much the same. I'm thinking triangles, and the Men in Black seem to not update their wardrobe. Make me think that they are in real-time incursions in our simulated world. I would disagree with the idea that the UFOs remain the same, and then you're thinking the triangles. So the triangles, as far as I can tell, those were a newer type of UFO that's been described. Before that was the flying saucers, but before that was the flying cigar. So it was almost gives you sort of the impression of like a UFO, or sorry, a submarine type shape in the sky. And then the flying saucer came from this pilot who saw these moving disc-like things that he said were skipping like saucers on water. So that's the flying saucer one. And once he said that and that became public, suddenly everybody else started saying, yes, it's this way. Any encounters with aliens tended to reflect popular culture. So back in like the 50s and 60s, when we had those monster movies that the aliens are really big and metallic and very human shaped and just kind of tall and even monstrous looking, that's what people would report. But then once they started changing to that small, frail, pale ones, which we call the Greys, if we were to call them a species, we call them the Greys. Then once that became part of pop culture, then that's what everybody started reporting. So there is some interesting stuff about sleep paralysis and how that is related to what you see during sleep paralysis is related to culture. So in a lot of Western culture with the alien abduction concept, people that experience sleep paralysis tend to report similar feelings of an alien abduction. But like in Japan, there's like a ghost that sits on your chest, and that's what they report instead. Not to be confused with the hag, which is one of the shadow people, so that's a different one. Let's see, we're not guessing here, Lee. We're 100% sure these people are alien. My bad. Like Beldar Conehead, who comes from France. Yes, with his bubble gum. Let's see. I think neurons are quantum mechanical, so our consciousness is tied to the multiverse. A sane mind is on a single reality tunnel track, but the psychosis veers it off the side, seeing other realities. Are you talking quantum entanglement? Is that what you're talking about with your saying that it's tied to the multiverse? It's weird how movie got us whipped into thinking something completely different about the MIB. I think after that, maybe that explanation of the ways that our perception of hang on, I gotta turn this thing off. The ways that our perception of UFOs and aliens have changed based on pop culture. I would say it's weird, but I would say it's also predictable. If the MIB are evidence of aliens, aren't UFOs too? I mean, they could just both be the government. So the MIB, whether they are physically aliens or they're just people that work for the government, they would be evidence, or them coming to your house, I would say, if that was true, it would lend some weight to your claim about having witnessed a UFO. Whether the UFO is extraterrestrial is a totally separate thing. Okay, so there could just be government workers talking about, hey, you saw that thing in the sky, it's something that we're testing that we don't want to get out, please shut up about it. So that would be a UFO because you can't identify it. It would be government people come in your house to tell you to stop talking about it because they don't want it leaked, but it would have nothing to actually do with aliens or anything else that's extraterrestrial. Let's see. Gotta get this off my chest. Ignoring Lee's question for a moment. Okay. I definitely think many government agencies have agents of some sort running around investigating mysterious events. Not doing that would be irresponsible. These agents have been misinterpreted. Okay, now that actually brings us to our next stage of this conversation, actually. But let's go ahead and read the rest of these first. If aliens have the technology to travel millions of light years, they may not need any device to erase our memory. We don't need to erase the memory of fish in the pond to fish again. That is true. Up until fairly recently, it seems the MIB would be unnecessary. Claims of UFOs and close encounters brought immediate aspersions about one's character or sanity. Okay, good. That is also related to the next section that we're going to talk about. Aliens can travel from another solar system but can't find a good way. Right. That's the thing. I think they're most likely to be regular humans. Maybe some might have shaved their hair and eyebrows to be completely anonymous. Okay. I think I heard Rogan say something about the new cigar sightings. All right. Well, that's interesting about the new cigar shapes. Or maybe some agencies just happen to have agents just happen to have some bad alopecia areata. Possibly not, because you would have to, the government would have to pay for that. Let's see. I have sleep paralysis all the time and OBEs. For you guys that don't know what that is, OBE is out of body experience. I've never seen anything from pop culture except once I saw beings that looked like Rick and Morty aliens. Usually I see animal spirits in a dark void. Thank you for sharing. Summer, if you want to share your OBE, and then I guess how you would differentiate an OBE different from a dissociation. Okay, because those would be pretty different. And then also astral projection, because an OBE is spontaneous, astral projection is intentional. At least that is the belief behind it. So the next section that I kind of wanted to talk about, other than just having you guys discuss this, and again, to have it be different from just any video that you could look up, is the concept of the government taking it upon themselves to do this much work. So as I've talked about before, there's a student of mine that is interested in discussing topics with flat earthers, but the student themselves is not a flat earther. And they had mentioned something, or I sent them something about, we were talking about how some people will just believe even when you show them all the reasons not to. And there was a Reddit post that I sent the student about this person who had found this UFO abduction website and thought, you know what, I got time. The person worked at a brewery, so they had a lot of this extra equipment, and they had started to fake these sightings and made a couple accounts and kind of linked the accounts and said, oh yeah, I was there too. And then he got his coworker in on it, and they were making all these faked things. And about 10 days later, after the other people in the forum were on board with this and saying, yeah, wow, these are amazing alien sightings, the person was like, haha, it's a joke, I just trolled you guys, ha ha ha, you know, this is totally fake, whatever, and you guys totally bought it, ha ha ha, joke's on you. But instead of believing it and saying, oh man, you know, another troll got us or something, they said that user had been hacked, or the MIB got to him, and all of this other stuff. And so I told the student as well, the government really doesn't have a reason to come after you, because the conspiracy theorists have poisoned their own well in a way. Like, they don't I likened it to the boy who cried wolf, that he made a claim and it was bogus, and so every time he made the claim it was bogus. So the one time that the boy who cried wolf was right, nobody believed him and he ended up being eaten. The difference here would be the boy who cried wolf intentionally lied to everyone, where a conspiracy theorist just kind of accepts everything and believes it. So there wouldn't need to be a separate wing of the government that goes and like hunts people down to knock on their doors and threaten them, because nobody believes them anyway. The amount of people that believe them, you know, I think a good example is the Trump supporter thing. They said, you know, people said, well, Biden clearly won, and so sometimes the person who had voted for Trump in 2020, they'll say, yeah, but 75 million Americans, blah, 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 or you can't silence 75 million Americans, and they cite this number because it sounds really big, but when you look at it as a percentage, it's like 22% of the country. And yeah, that's still a pretty hefty percent, sure, but it's not like the majority by far. And so when you look at the number of people that believe in conspiracy theories, it might sound like a big number, but it's really, really not the greater population. Because of that, there doesn't seem to be any need for the government. I mean, how many of you have worked for the government? Okay, I've worked for the government. I've worked for the government not only in the military, but I've worked for the government in another capacity as well. They don't... They're just busy working or trying to look like they're working so they can run the clock out and go home for the day. They're so busy with so much other stuff. They're not going to take it upon themselves to go out of their way to do this thing and, you know, to go silence somebody that nobody's really listening to anyway. After all, if the government really cared about this, they would shut down UFO conventions. And people say, well, they can't do that because that would prove it. I mean, it doesn't prove it, but if they can't, if the MIB showing up to shut down a UFO convention proves that aliens are visiting Earth, then so does this, right? So does this thing that we're looking at where they're making individual visits. Can you imagine making an individual visit to somebody and saying, hi, we saw that Reddit post you made got 7 likes, and we just want to make sure, or 7 upvotes, and we just want to make sure that you don't talk about it ever again. You know, that's not somebody's job. You know what I mean? That's I feel like, okay, when you're a child, you think that adults have it all together and they've got everything figured out and they're just super slick and super cool. And then when you become an adult, you're like, oh yeah, this actually is like not that official. And there's that time period where you actually have to realize how to be an adult, because it's not what you thought it was. It's not like you become an adult and suddenly like all of your life is in order. You know, you realize you're just kind of, you know, trying to keep your head above water. That's what I would say is how the regular public views the military or the greater government. They have this idea that everything is super slick and put together and really great, and then when you actually work for the government, you're like, oh, this is kind of like another job, except it actually sucks a little bit more somehow. Okay. That's all it is. So, you know, just like somebody who works at a Taco Bell isn't going to be bothered by visiting your house to tell you, hey, stop posting these negative reviews about our restaurant in Yelp. I mean, nobody's going to go out of their way to do that, you know, and that's actually something that can negatively affect that Taco Bell. You know, even more so, the federal government is not going to go find somebody posting something in the middle of their, you know, house at midnight about this. So let's go ahead and see what you guys have said during my monologue here. Let's see. Cigar sightings we talked about. I think the OBE I hadn't experienced once or twice when I was just a kid, but it was so long ago. All right. Let's see. I usually wake up with sleep paralysis and I see visions of spirits. If I do focus, I can turn the sleep paralysis into an OBE or astral projection. The other world looks a lot like the Upside Down. I also see Matrix code. Okay. I will have to step away for a few minutes. Okay, come back and enjoy. Chris. I was in a strange school program as a child. I was taught TM and astral projection. I started lucid dreaming regular in the 3rd grade. That's interesting. I've heard that you can be taught how to do lucid dreaming, but I just never got it. The difference between dissociation and OBE. And then, let's see. You're just not there, no memory. OBE, it's like experiential and remembered, greatly oversimplified, but the best I can describe it. Okay. I think it's become less and less of a priority to hide alien activity. There will be a big release of it soon, just because it's becoming I mean, there's already been releases of it. You know what I mean? This is not like... I mean, Project Blue Book is one example, but there was also a kind of a recent revelation of a Navy video where there was some strange thing that was caught on camera. People believing in alien conspiracies is a great way to hide what the government actually works on, right? Which is probably slightly boring. It's probably very boring. Okay. Now, the whole thing with Bob Lazar, there were people that showed up to his house that he had claimed. I think that would be a different thing, because Bob Lazar wasn't really making any claims. He had stolen something. He had stolen this element. I guess he said it was a new element they were working on or something, but he stole this like experimental government property, you know, and if they're still working with it, experimenting with it, they don't have a lot of it and they don't really know what it does. They don't want somebody taking that home to play with. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't think that... I would say that if Bob Lazar was saying an accurate thing and he did take that thing home, I would absolutely believe that somebody would show up, turn his house upside down, and take it back. You can't just take things, you know what I mean? I think we saw that with the insurrection that had happened in the U.S. Capitol on the 6th of this month. You can't just take stuff out of the government and then expect nobody to come after you for it. And those weren't even, alien documents or anything. It was just, you can't just do that. Let's see. Conspiracy theorists are very optimistic about the human capacity. That's very kind of them. Yes, that is. Splurge, what am I all about? In this video, we are talking about the idea about conspiracy theories. In this particular video, it is about conspiracy theory that is called the Men in Black, which is not to be confused with the movie, but the movie was likely inspired by cases or claims of the Men in Black. But what I like to try to do with my channel is talk about topics in a way that I haven't seen presented before. So a lot of the discussion about the Men in Black that I've seen, it's recounting historical cases of it, showing some video footage of this particular thing that's that you guys can see in this other window, and then discussing, wow, UFOs, and oh my gosh, what could it be, and blah blah blah. So in this case, as somebody who has worked for the government, my argument is from that position, which is there wouldn't need to be a Men in Black, because number one, nobody believes conspiracy theorists on a large scale anyway, even when they get stuff right, like the Iran-Contra scandal, for example, or MK Ultra. I mean, people still talk about MK Ultra as if it's like this hidden, unspoken conspiracy. I mean, it's not. You could look this. It's a common knowledge, they've released it. Same with Project Blue Book and stuff. So nobody would believe them anyway, right? And the other thing is that the government is not going to waste their time. They're just too busy doing other stuff. They got, superiors breathing down their neck. Hey, did you get this thing done? Did you get this thing done? Nobody's going to go out of their way to knock on a door and give a threat to a citizen that nobody cares about anyway. Do you know what I mean? Just doesn't make sense. I remember reading the pyramids are really built by aliens when I was in elementary school. I still watch Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. It's really entertaining, and maybe I hope it's true. Yeah, I let my students know during history class, sometimes they might find out that there's, they might hear stuff like, who has heard that the pyramids were actually built by aliens? And, there's a couple students that usually raise their hand. And I say, well, maybe. There's just no evidence of it at that time. But we do have stuff like, the drafts of, from Imhotep, these early drafts of the pyramids. So we've got some evidence in one direction and no evidence in the other direction. Does that mean that the aliens didn't do it for sure? No. But what does the evidence say, So I try to show them how to see which claims hold more water, and not just tell them, oh, those people are dumb, whatever, don't believe that. I don't want to tell them what to think. I want to teach them how to think and how to figure this stuff out on their own. Reminds me of Jim Baker claiming that the government won't allow him to preach on TV while preaching on TV. Exactly. These are people that talk about, I was so scared when the Men in Black showed up at my house and they told me never to say anything or else I'll be killed and blah, blah, blah. And they're telling people this in public. They'll write a book about it. They will post about it on the internet. They'll make a video about it and post that on the internet. And then they don't die. Do you know what I mean? It's if you were really that scared when they showed up to your house, and you really were worried about it, as much as they maybe had claimed, why are you doing this? And then how come you're not dead? Right? And some people say, well, now they can't kill you because it'll prove something. I mean, do you think the government can't make something look like an accident? You don't even have to make it look like an accident. You know what I mean? You just you pay the detectives to look the other way. Like, you could literally just straight up kill a person. Do you know what I mean? Not have to make it look like a suit. You can literally just put 2 in the back of their head and then pay some detectives to write something different, or pay the coroner to say this is ruled as a suicide. We're done. You don't even have to do anything elaborate. You know what I mean? You don't have to stage anything. You don't have to do anything. So the person could, say something and then, they suicide. Well, that's really suspicious. Okay. But who are the people that find it suspicious? Other conspiracy theorists that already, people are not going to listen to. So there's just no reason to even go out of your way to do that, Let's see. Dissociative disorder is just not there, but OBEs are remembered. Okay, I think we talked about that. The problem with conspiracy theorists is they believe that their theory is just as true as a scientific theory. Yes. And I think the word theory really throws them off as well. I also think that some people don't understand what a conspiracy theory is. So it has to have a conspiracy. It has to have a bunch of people conspiring together to hide a thing. So this idea that aliens are visiting the Earth, that's not a conspiracy. Aliens are visiting the Earth and the government deliberately covers it up, that would be a conspiracy. You know what I mean? But we have to be careful with that too. The recent UFO files released by the CIA. Exactly. Bob Lazar went to Pierce Junior College. He did not attend MIT. He knows nothing about MIT. Yeah. It could be, anything. Made of a metal that does not exist on Earth. Right. And how do we know that? There's, what is it? Iridium? That's really hard to find. Most people don't know what it is. Same with like Buckminster fullerene. Most people aren't going to know what that is. So if you get somebody who doesn't know about this thing, they're going to say it's like nothing I've ever seen before on Earth, not knowing it's actually found on Earth. Do you know what I mean? I self-taught lucid dreaming after a self-directed project on sleep and dreams. Oh, cool. Bob Lazar was also in trouble for prostitution, sure, but that's poisoning the well. Whether whatever happened with him and prostitution has no bearing on the veracity of his claims about working for the government and all that stuff. A note about the Navy videos recently released. Some YouTubers have shown why the things captured in the video are very explainable because of physics and stuff. Great. I don't think... What I think happened is some pilots saw a thing, it looked pretty funky, they looked at it on the camera, that's extra funky. Hey guys, this thing's pretty funky. Maybe somebody mentioned it to somebody else or posted it about it themselves. Hey, I saw some really weird thing when I was flying, whatever. And then they thought, oh, maybe I should delete that. That sounds weird. So they deleted it. But then people were like, oh my gosh, this Navy pilot. And then the government deleted it, whatever. And they had already figured out what it was by that time. And then other people who didn't know that heard that there was this hidden thing that the government had caught UFO on camera, and then they hid this, and so the government released it and that's what they said with the statement. They said we understand that people are talking about this and they don't understand what they're talking about, so we want to release the video to set the record straight. Like, they knew that when they were releasing it, this is not going to be anything special. You guys can take a look at it for yourselves. That was their case. But how was that put out into the greater media? The government releases UFO files or UFO footage or something like that. And that's what, of course, got me interested in it. I checked it out. And it turns out it was just that, hey, we heard you guys were talking about this and you got it wrong. Here's the video so you guys know what you're talking about. That was it. There was nothing out of this world about it. It's, and I think that's the problem with a lot of stuff, because I have worked, and it wasn't really high up or anything, but I did work briefly in intelligence when I was in the Marines, and the stuff that you can't talk about, it's just stuff that's like, so people don't freak out, because people can't hear this thing and then this other thing and finito, done. they can't accept that. They turn it into this like fear fest, and it's very frustrating. And while I was in, there was something that had been made apparent to us, and it was like 2 sentences, and that was it. And then over time later, the media got a hold of it and turned it into this like weeks-long fear fest that ended in nothing. But it scared everybody, and it created all of this fear and panic, and there was nothing. It was nothing. There was nothing to worry about. That's the stuff the government hides. That and like a bunch of research they're doing while they're doing it. That's it. That's it. I mean, it's not... It's nothing... It's nothing like scary or whatever. It's very simple. I don't know. It's very straightforward stuff. Like once you understand, like, oh, this is why they hide it. Oh, that makes sense. You know, that's all it is. You know. Let's see. There's a lot of Dunning-Kruger involved in conspiracy theories for sure. I would say so. I would say so. And I would also say what the argument from incredulity. I would say that plays into it as well. This idea that, well, if it wasn't aliens, then what could it have been? And you try to explain it, but because they don't understand what you're talking about, they're like, no, it was aliens. Let's see. The children in this program were taught a lot of interesting things. Neurologists have postulated my extensive dissociative history allowed me a greater level of neuroplasticity as an adult. That's interesting. Let's see. I'm going to scroll up a bit. I think we've lost where we were. I hate when that happens. I don't know why this jumps down so much. There's a difference between conspiracies and conspiracy theories. Yes, absolutely. Let's see. You guys are talking to each other, which is fine. I'm just not gonna read them out loud. Buckminster Fuller, Buckyball Architect, yes. But the Buckminster Fullerene is, well, I guess we could just look it up, huh? There it is. Cool. So it's this carbon, I think it's what, carbon 60, carbon 65. And it's, they're nicknamed Buckyballs. But because of the, oh, let's check it out. Here we go. Yeah, C60 right there. So because it's shaped similar to Buckminster Fuller's architectural designs, that's why they called it Buckyballs or Buckminster Fullerene. So that is pretty cool stuff. Obviously this is not a real shape here. I'm trying to see if we can find, I mean, it says real, but I don't think this is, it must be like under here somewhere. But that's the general shape of it. It's, I don't know, similar to, I always thought it looked kind of similar to soccer balls or something. But that's what it is. It's associated with different types of crashes of, is this it? I guess. Perhaps. Some type of, I guess asteroid crashes. There's places where when you dig down, suddenly you'll just hit a bunch of buckyballs, and then they're not there anymore. So it's not a common thing to find on Earth. But yeah, they're named after the architect. Let's see. The debunked UFO video has been unbunked by Commander Fravor. I haven't heard the phrase unbunked. So what do you mean by that? The reason the Navy and Air Force didn't release the videos for so long is that the videos could be hints about the plane's detection abilities, and those are secret. Exactly. It's not, again, it's nothing like, it's like when you understand why they do it, you're just like, oh, that's such a obvious reason. Why didn't I think of that? You know, I used to be a conspiracy theorist in high school, so I try not to be judgmental. Yeah. I was interested in this stuff too. And of course they start you off with, well, what, do you believe everything the government says? And of course, no. But that doesn't mean that on the same, the opposite side of that, the other side of the coin would be, do you disbelieve everything the government says? Why would you do that just automatically? Yeah. Those Navy UFOs did maneuvers that are impossible with conventional propulsion technology. So the Navy UFOs, again, this could be something that it appears that way, but it actually wasn't that, or that's what they're working on. Do you know what I mean? They're working on non-conventional propulsion technology. Let's see. What else? I did it again. I hate this jump down nonsense. I'm a low mid-level conspiracy theorist now, and I just deal with being judged. I think everything should be investigated. And I don't mean that everything has equal merit, but I think everything should be investigated. So even if it's something that immediately offhand, this is ridiculous, for this reason, that reason, and the other reason, you should still understand why people believe it. So perhaps, do you guys think we should do a QAnon conspiracy theorist episode? Do you think that would be helpful? Not right now, but at a later time. Let's see. H.G. Wells and Orson Welles should have taught us something. Well, as a history teacher, I will tell you, there's a lot of stuff that just repeats itself, it doesn't, it's, yeah. Let's see. The Marine Corps is hiding hydrographical surveys that were used to stock Hunchy Crunchy in the Kissy waterway. I have no idea. Being treated like a lab rat was definitely interesting. I believe that, Summer. I was part of a study for chronic pain, but that was about it. Let's see. Buckminster Fuller died 1 month and 4 days before I was born. I'm clearly the reincarnation because of him, because I'm smart, right? I don't know. How many things are you building? This would be a really good thing to build for your rats there, Ratsa. Okay, so thank you, Hiram, for that. You included an ethnic slur, so we're just going to go ahead and take that off. Thanks a lot. And I did not know that. I apologize for that. I was just reading what Hiram said. I think I'm going to just have to go back to not reading what Hiram says, and perhaps even just not having him on this channel if that's the kind of stuff he's going to do. Hiram has been here for a while. The stuff he says, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting because it's very disjointed. It's just kind of interesting to just see what comes out of his fingers, I guess, because he's typing. But yeah, you can't just pose ethnic slurs, dude. Come on, especially when they're not something that a lot of people outside of that region know, and so I'm just going to read it out loud. Come on, man. Come on. Try to use that. Use those, heat up those skull noodles, dude. Undebunked, disbunked, anti-bunked. Yeah, what are we talking about? Conspiracy theorists usually give you grains of truth, which leads you down a trail of nonsense, right? Bunked. Ooh, I like it. Let's see. Absolutely, yes for the QAnon. I'd be interested in every conspiracy stream you want. Still want one on fringe archaeology. Are you talking the mud flood? Like that? Fringe archaeology? Oh, you're right. The rats could climb a huge mountain. Yeah, I'm talking like this. Your rats would love this. Or you can make like a buckyball shape for like the rat ball. Like you put them in there to wander around the house. You know what I mean? Alright. So, I think this has been going on for a while. It's been an hour. I do need to rest my back and all of that. Retro bunked. That's good. Went back in time, debunked it, flipped it, undebunked it. Yeah. So, hopefully that kind of discusses it. Could something be rebunked? Yeah, what would we call that? We would just say, we were kind of going in all these silly things, so sometimes we kind of just forget, like, the most obvious way to say it. So, if something is debunked, we can say the debunking was inaccurate. I guess that's how I would say it. Yeah, somebody attempted to debunk that video, but actually they got it wrong because of this, this, and this. So I don't think the video or the thing was debunked by them. I think that's how I would have to phrase it. I don't know if there would be like a single word for it. An unsuccessful debunk. Maybe? That's how we would say it. Not that big, they're not that smart. I mean, the style. Yeah, the style, not the size. Okay. My dad has a high security clearance. I don't know what it was. He said it was military technology that was around 50 years ahead of what the general population was aware of. Yeah, absolutely. Like there's stuff, oh my god. There's stuff that people, I mean, people get stuff exposed and then they forget it. One is like when I heard recently-ish, I don't know, 2015 or so, that the government can listen in on your you know, the government's tracking you and the government listens in and the government blah blah blah, and I'm like, did you guys forget that the US signed the Patriot Act, like that allowed that to happen? I mean, it's so ridiculous because some of these conspiracy theories, when people tell me, did you know that the government was doing blah? I'm like, yes, it was already talked about 10 years ago. What do you mean, did you know? Like, this is not, it's not like a hidden thing anymore, man. Like, you could literally just, there's a Wikipedia page for it, you know? It's not like this hidden thing. And that's what I think is so interesting, that there's so much that the government actually puts out, and then people don't pay attention to it. Years later, somebody gets, like a conspiracy theorist, finds it and exposes it, and then people don't believe it because a conspiracy theorist said it, even though it's 1,000% true. Like sound weapons or a heat ray. Those exist. And it's like every time a sound weapon is used, people are like, the government has sound weapons? It's like, yeah, just like the same reaction you had 5 years ago when we talked about sound weapons, and 10 years before that when they talked about sound weapons. Yes, the government has sound weapons. Like, what? You can look it up. It's called the LRAD. LRAD. They were from like the 80s or something. And this is not like a hidden thing, you know? And we're not talking like blasting music as a psychological deterrent or psychological detriment because you can't sleep. We're not talking about that. We're talking about like targeted sound causing you to just vomit. You know what I mean? People always, they forget. Or the heat ray. Of course we've had a heat ray. Those things have existed forever. This one's just a better version of it, you know? These were written about like in ancient Greek days even. And then people act like, oh, this is like this thing that the government's hiding. No, it's not. You know, the government doesn't put that much effort into it. You know what I mean? It's like once it gets leaked, it's like, well, you know, dang it, David, why did you talk about it? Damn it. Now we gotta do another thing. Yeah, that's it, period. Full, you know, that's it, full stop. Like, that's all there is to it. I'm going to use my smartphone to tell y'all the vaccine has a tracking chip. Exactly. Why would they waste? That's a lot of time. There's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of, it just, like the thing with facial recognition. You did that, you know, you being the people, not necessarily you watching this. You did that for them. They gave you an option. Hey, do you want Facebook to use facial recognition to tag you in photos? Oh my God, yeah, I want to get tagged in photos. Cool. Okay. Cool. Now we're working with facial recognition technology. Hey, do you want to know what your face looks like if you were born in this different sex? You know, if you're a girl, and how would my face look if it was masculinized or whatever? But we'll keep the photo to help with facial recognition, and that's how all of this works. In fact, we match your face with a man who has a similar face, and then we say that you guys look very similar, and we, you know, merge the faces a bit, blah, blah, blah. And they just tell you exactly how they do it. And then people get surprised that the government has facial recognition technology. I did not consent to this. You did. I guess that's the part of conspiracy theories that I find the most frustrating. Not that even there's conspiracy theorists that believe so many things uncritically. That exists outside of conspiracy theories. We see that with all types of like, you know, religions and other types of beliefs, just people having too much trust in an authority figure, you know, whatever. that's a type that's like a human subtype, I guess we could call it. But what I really get frustrated about is when people act as if these things are new and hidden, and how could the government do that? And in reality, they've been telling you this to your face. They let you vote on it. They explain it all to you very specifically, and then 10 years later, when you hear about it again, you forgot it, and now you're shocked, and how dare they? And you agreed to this before. Like, how do people forget that? I don't understand. So we'll go ahead and go through the rest of these comments, and then we'll kill this for today. Let's see. Bunk equals nonsense. Meta bunk. My dad had a high security clearance. Okay, we talked about that. No, like sophisticated people living thousands of years ago. I don't even know if Göbekli Tepe would be fringe archaeology. It is archaeology. It's just we're not sure. And when I try to explain that stuff to my students, I'd let them know, yeah, we set up 10,000 years ago. That's when we really got a handle on what is it? Oh my God, not archaeology, not anthropology, agriculture. There's that word with an A. We got a handle on agriculture so we could start cities, blah, 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 blah. And that's when we started making writing and, sculptures and big things because we weren't having to walk around, whatever, comma. And there's this weird site called Göbekli Tepe, which appears to have existed between 2,000 and 4,000 years prior to this. Why? At this time, we don't know. So in the future, we might find something out like a bunch of people got together from different tribes to come here to do a religious activity together. Okay. We might find out that agriculture actually goes back further than we thought. Okay. We might find some other thing. So just be aware that at this time, it appears that agriculture started and civilization started about 10,000 years ago. Perhaps 14,000, perhaps older. But at this time, that's what the evidence points to. So that's how I explain it to them. Because I don't want them to think, and I tell them, history doesn't change, it's just our understanding changes based on what we find and based on the technology we have in order to find it and understand it. So, like when I was in school, they taught us Neanderthal were very stupid, they were just like these cavemen that were just kind of dumb and huddled together, and Homo sapiens found them and totally dominated them and killed all of them because golly gosh darn, these Neanderthal were just too stupid. And then from that time period, from when I was in high school to now when I'm teaching high school, it turns out Neanderthal were quite sophisticated, and humans and Neanderthal, interbred and all of this other stuff. We've figured out the human genome in my lifetime. Of course we're going to have to go back and see, was our understanding correct in light of this new evidence, in light of this new technology. So I don't know if the Göbekli Tepe would be fringe archaeology. I think some claims about it are just claims about it, but I don't think anybody denies that Göbekli Tepe exists and that it's as old as it is, and that it was likely a religious site. Yeah. Let's see. For QAnon, but I refuse to go on their site for research. Right. So I would be the one doing all of that, and then you guys would be the one, I guess, benefiting from it, if you could call it that. Let's see. Military habitual learning, or leaning towards the lowest bidder contradicts the idea for military having superior technology. Yes. But you end up with some weird stuff. We talked about it in one of the cafeteria clubs. The survey equipment, not like census equipment, but surveying, like drafting and surveying. Survey equipment, super amazing. Meanwhile, we're using like we had these flak, like these Kevlars, and we were using them for training, but they're like from the Vietnam War era, but then our survey equipment, it's super good. And it was cool because you would have to you had somebody trying to get this camera that judges distance and stuff, so you're not doing the tape measure walk, and the other person, so one person's holding this camera, and the camera has to register this other thing that somebody else is holding. The other thing is like a long staff with a crystal on top of it, so you look like a wizard walking around this plot of land or something, just to try to calculate, you know, or just to get the dimensions of it, you know, basically. I just really appreciated being in uniform and having the crystal. Yes, I did play D&D in the military as well, so that was a good time. Let's see. I'm going to use my smartphone. Yes, we talked about that. Let's see. I have no knowledge of QAnon. Should I research it? If you want, just be aware I would use a VPN if you're going to do it. At least incognito mode. But look up Graham Hancock. That's my jam. I will, you know, I'll turn on some video or something and listen to it after this. So I'll just get this set up so I don't forget. Graham Hancock. I don't know why my internet's being slow today, so we'll just let that load. One common thing about conspiracy theorists is they usually have special sources for information. Usually the special sources are another conspiracy theorist on YouTube. Right. And I think the big difference between that and during that time, like I had mentioned earlier, there was something we found out in Intel, and it became slowly released to the public, and it was this fear fest thing. I, you know, of course, had relatives that were worried about it, and I couldn't explain why. And I told them, listen, you know, I got information about this, and I can't tell you, but don't worry about it. But I understand if you don't want to believe me because I can't give you any evidence. You know, I get that. And that's how I think some people took it, was that, okay, well, there's this thing this military person is saying, but they don't have any evidence to back it up, so, you know, I don't have to take it seriously. And I was okay with that. I think the difference between a conspiracy theorist then, between something like that, is they claim to have evidence, and when the evidence is pointed out to not be true or whatever, they get upset with you. They don't realize that perhaps the evidence wasn't good enough, or perhaps the evidence isn't convincing enough, or, you know, they blame the person who isn't convinced. Whereas for me, I was like, I get it, I don't blame anybody, you know, it's nothing that, it's my fault for not being able to present it to you really well. But the conspiracy theorist, it's like, it's your fault for trying to debunk the evidence or something, you know. QAnon can be debunked because their story keeps changing. So it wouldn't be necessarily to debunk them so much as it would be to just discuss this conspiracy, because I think a lot of people have heard of it, but they don't know what it is. It's sort of the same as you know, if I were to make a video about flat earthers when the flat earth movement had first started, it wouldn't be to necessarily debunk the concept, but just to explain, like, this is what flat earthers are, here's what they believe, here's the different factions of it, you know. Because they don't all believe the same thing. I don't know if you guys know that. Flat earthers do not all believe the same thing. Let's see. Yes, to stream about them, though. Okay. Al Radness, an acoustic weapon, not a sound weapon. You have to use foil to disrupt the acoustic waves rather than earplugs. You know what? You're right. That's true. That's true. It's an acoustic weapon. You can tell I didn't work with the LRAD. But again, but the way that it's presented to the public, it's a sound weapon. But you're right, it is an acoustic weapon for sure, because you cannot avoid it with the earplugs. Because we had asked about that. We were like very briefly introduced to it, and then it's like, but you're never going to use this, so, and then that was it. But that was one of the things they had mentioned, was if you cover your ears or wear earplugs, it doesn't matter. It's still going to have those reactions with you. So it's a good distinction to make for sure, definitely. Let's see. Looking down. Gait recognition is much more insidious than facial recognition. Much more Chinese research on that, especially since it's subconscious and actively having to change your gait. Yeah, I think there's, that would be really difficult to do, or to change, for sure. And I think it's a good point that it's not just facial recognition that people are considering, or that they're monitoring. And I also think it's interesting, or I don't know, interesting, I suppose, from an educational standpoint. I don't know how to phrase this. I'll just say it. The fact that there is a country that can openly do this to citizens, I think it's interesting that we're able to get this type of information. Whether we should have it, whether it's moral, that's like a totally different thing. But the fact that we're able to get this information, I think is really, really interesting. Disturbing, I guess, is another term, but I think it's interesting that we have this available at all. Yeah, I would wonder too how to avoid the gate recognition. And it's just also making me think, especially when I don't have my prescription glasses on, because of migraines and stuff. It's easier for me to recognize somebody walking towards me or away from me or across, perpendicular to me, because of their gait, because I can't recognize their face, because I can't see the details of their face, but I can recognize their walk. So it's kind of an interesting concept. The incredible amounts of righteous indignation radiating from these people could power the civilized world. That's true. It drove me crazy when people on Facebook complains about things that they signed in the terms of service. Right. And I think they also forget Facebook is not a government entity. If Facebook wants to kick you off, they can. That's not censorship. That's not against your freedom of speech, which is a totally different topic, which we could always talk about, but I do want to slowly bring this to a close. Let's see, the Navy videos. Yeah, Ratsa, why don't you do that? You can put a video of that. There is a giant blank in history that archaeologists hate you for, that the archaeologists hate you for talking about, though. I mean, I haven't talked to any archaeologists about that, so I don't know if they would hate it. I've heard from, like, Eric von Daniken. I've heard him say that people get upset about it, but I don't know. I feel like it would almost be more like, because it's so associated with, oh my god, aliens, that people who are serious in the field, once they hear something like, well, what about Göbekli Tepe, instead of actually hearing what you might have to say, they sort of overreact to it. It's like when somebody asks, do you believe in ghosts? And you get people that respond with, like, only idiots believe in ghosts. No, I'm not that gullible, you loser. And, like, they get all, like, in their face about it. And the person didn't even say, I believe in ghosts, or let me tell you a ghost story. They just ask, do you believe in ghosts? And the person who's, like, the skeptic responds back so rudely. And I really dislike that. And so perhaps that's what's going on, is it's not that there's no discussion to be had, but perhaps they're overreacting to it because it's so associated with that, like, ancient aliens, quote unquote, archaeology, and they just don't want to deal with it. But then they should just say that, I don't know. But then again, I'm just very, I don't know, I guess I don't react super strongly to stuff, or when I do react very strongly, I ask myself, well, why are you reacting so strongly to that? And I try to, I don't know, I think the only times that you guys see me go on these rants of, like, oh, I can't believe it, is just stuff that I can't understand. Like, I try to understand something, I just can't understand why somebody would do something like posting a bunch of stuff on my videos, but they don't listen to what I say or watch the video. It's like, why would you? I don't get it. Every time I try to think about it, it's like the old Windows 95 blue screen of death just, like, pops up. Like, what reasoning happened here, So that's when I would have, like, a spiral off reaction, strong reaction, whatever you would want to call it. But yeah, perhaps that's what's going on. So you said theory is there was a mini apocalypse. So we do want to make sure, if we're talking about the scientific study of like archaeology, we do want to say like there is an idea or hypothesis. So because that word gets so muddied, I try to make a sharp distinction that we're talking about an idea. There was a mini apocalypse that had a lot of religious texts are referring to that. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that, because these religious texts that are talking about an apocalypse were written like 7,000 years later. Do you know what I mean? And that's 7,000 years after, assuming that there was civilization before that ended. So after civilization restarted, about 7,000 years later, that's when people started writing about an upcoming apocalypse in the future. So I don't think that they would have. I mean, when was the last time somebody today wrote about something that happened 7,000 years ago? And we're not. That's not like a historian, I guess, or an archaeologist. Yeah, I don't know. And then if all of the writing was destroyed, and all of these generations had been, destroyed, then how would anybody have even known about it? You know what I mean? That's the other thing too. And again, they're talking about a future apocalypse too. Let's see. Won't spend my time researching QAnon. My neighbor believes in Q and a lot of crazy stuff. You know what? Maybe then you could just ask your neighbor. Don't be judgmental about it necessarily. Don't go in thinking this person is nuts and I'm going to debunk them and show them, the light or something. Just go in and say, hey, I heard about this thing online and I heard something that you said that maybe was related. Do you know anything about QAnon? And just let them talk. And if they, try to learn about it as if you are like an anthropologist going into a new tribe or something. So don't push their buttons. Don't try to challenge them necessarily. Just ask questions that you have and just see what they say. That would be an interesting talk when you don't have a migraine. Because don't try to understand this when you're having a migraine. That is not a good time. If the government is hiding evidence of aliens, then why is SETI still a thing? How come astronomers have never observed a UFO? You could say it depends. I know the conspiracy theorist answer to this. So the conspiracy theorist answer to this is that they let these things exist, but they're not functional, because the government wants to give the impression that they are allowing an unmitigated or open allowance of research into this field, and golly gosh darn, we just haven't found anything. I guess we can conclude that aliens aren't trying to contact us at this time. So the conspiracy theorist believes that SETI is a front, and that astronomers have observed UFOs, but anytime somebody says something about it, they're ridiculed or visited by the Men in Black. So that's what their argument would be about it. Let's see. I just got a tabletop RPG dice from Wish, but since they're from China, I guess they're bugged now. Well, that's cool. Maybe you can talk to them, just like talk and just like, hey, do you guys want to learn Swedish? So you could just they can listen to you and then learn Swedish. My goodness. Let's see. You guys are writing so much. It's like it looks like there's not a lot to scroll through, and then when I press like the down arrow, it just suddenly shows there's so much. Do you recall an atheist YouTuber, Pimp Monks? No, I don't. I don't know this person, but if they want guests and stuff, let them know. I don't have a VPN. Depends on what you need it for. Can I really not afford to have a VPN? It's up to you. I think most people use VPNs if they are I would say the average person probably uses VPNs for one of two reasons. One reason is to access different websites, or different versions of websites, such as if I'm in Korea and there's a new thing that's released on Netflix, but Netflix Korea doesn't have it, I would use a VPN to open my Netflix account in a US IP address, and then that would allow me to view American Netflix. So that's one way to do it. I think a lot of people use it for that. There's some other stuff too, like there's some videos in Korea that are I want for education, like to show my students, but because they have to do with certain topics, they're listed as like you have to input your social security number and stuff to prove that you're over 19, to prove that you are an adult, because it's banned for minors or something. But if you go to any other country, or any other OECD country, I guess we would say, you could just look at it. You know, this is not like it's nothing. It's like educational. It's like some of the videos for the Capitol building that got stormed. You know, yes, there might be violence in it. Yes, there might be blood in it, but it's news, right? But if I try to access a video like that sometimes in Korea, I can't. Same with World War II stuff. If I try to access a video with World War II stuff, it tells me I have to log in and I gotta type in all my information and all this stuff. And I just think, why? So if I were using a VPN, I could just access it from like a UK server or something and then have no problem with that. Don't have to type in any information. The other reason I think people use it is because they're looking some stuff up. So like for me, looking up QAnon stuff, for example, if I do that, a lot of the advertisements and other things that I will get or suddenly become that. So if let's say that I looked up something that was QAnon, a bunch of research on QAnon stuff for a video, then I would start getting advertisements for like Donald Trump memorabilia would start being advertised to me. I would get advertisements for Fox News or something that would start being advertised to me. So it would just change, you know, the targeted ads that I get would change because of what I looked up. So if I was using a VPN, I would use a VPN to look up the QAnon stuff, just so that way when I'm scrolling through like Instagram, I don't get like a please commemorate America's greatest president with this coin, you know, that kind of advertisement targeted towards me. That's what I think most people use it for. There's other uses of it, but the average person that gets a VPN, I think that's just what they use it for. Let's see. If you consistently cede intellectual property belonging to others, then you should probably consider VPN. They believe in different flat shapes for the Earth. Sort of. So there are different maps. There's one that a lot of them use that's the Gleason Map. That's what it's called. And it's similar to the UN logo. And that just shows where it's just a map of the flat Earth. Oh, this is where these continents are. And so not everyone agrees with that. Some people believe that there is no dome. And so they understand gravity and that gravity holds gases close to the planet, blah, blah, blah. There's no dome. And then the outside, the thing that stops us from falling off the Earth and also keeps all the water on the Earth is an ice wall, which is what we would consider Antarctica. And the ice wall is protected by all the governments of the world. That's how they believe it. Or they don't believe in an ice wall, and instead they believe in the dome shape that we've talked about in the Book of Enoch videos. So they believe there's a dome. Some believe that there is Earth, but others believe that there is concentric Earths. So instead of an ice wall, there's like really, really, really tall mountains, and then this is us. And then around that, there's another ring of a different Earth or a different planet. And there's other people and other animals and other plants that are here. And then there's another border with some kind of barrier. Again, it could be a dome type shape. It could be very, very large mountain range or something. And then there's another one. There's another circle of Earth. So it almost, if you look at it from like a bird's eye view, it'll look like a bullseye. So that's one of the beliefs. So, and some people don't think that. Some people think there's maybe 2 or 3 layers. Some people think there's infinite layers, and so infinitely, the Earth is like concentric circles spreading out. So that's another belief. Some people believe that the sun and moon are small objects. Some people believe that the sun and moon are projections on the inside of the dome. So there's a lot of different ideas there. We're flying about the giant turtle. Yes. Let's see. I think a good student should do research incognito. It is. Yeah, that's true. You can still buy eggs in Korea. Yes, you can. I think it'd be nice to access other countries' Netflix. Yeah. Let's see. I don't have a VPN. I'm completely uninteresting to the government. Yes. If you use public Wi-Fi, yes, and you access bank records, that is true. That's another thing. In Korea, a lot of the stuff is really, really, really secure, so we don't. It's a lot more difficult to for somebody to gain access, gain unauthorized access to your banking information. But yes, you're right for sure. Let's see. Haven't read any of the books. Stay safe. Have a good one. Have a great day. You too, Erin. Thanks for joining us. Is it common knowledge that the biggest big box store uses facial recognition? Masks have been making things interesting. I don't know if it's common knowledge. I haven't heard anything about it, but at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, because that would probably most be used for preventing against theft. So if a person who stole something, they could like flag their face, and so when they come in again, they would escort them out automatically, something like that. Let's see, hopping to the store now. Very cool. We're gonna be ending this anyway. Let's see. People get crazy defensive. I hate that too. Not even talking about ancient aliens, just that our timeline is screwed up to fit narratives. They fire archaeologists saying alternative theories. Yeah, and again, I've heard that, but I don't have any. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen any evidence of it. I haven't heard any archaeologists say that, like, hey, I used to work for this research department, and then I found some evidence that might indicate XYZ, so when I brought it up to them, they told me, shut up, and if you bring it up again, then we'll fire you. So I brought it up again in one of my classes, and they fired me. So I've never heard anything like that. I've heard other people claiming it, but I haven't heard anybody as a first-hand account, like, oh, this happened to me, or written in any kind of like schools, what am I thinking, like teacher conduct, like professor's conduct manual or anything. I haven't seen anything like that. Let's see. I met someone who believed the things that von Daniken wrote. So have I. Yeah, I've met those people too. And it's interesting, again, just to let them talk, you know, even if you disagree with it, just interesting to see what they think. Let's see. A whole lot of people seem more sensitive than they used to be. Yeah, I think part of it is, it's something I told one of my students, that, you know, one of the beautiful things about the internet is we can read anything, and one of the negative things about the internet is that we can read anything. And I think a lot of people, instead of researching what is X, are there any arguments against X, are there any arguments against the arguments against X, and trying to just piece together what part of this is true, what part of X is true, they will go in a direction that they'll type, like, the search terms they use are the search terms based on what they already believe. So if I were to say something like the MIB, again, to go back to the what this conspiracy video was about, if I were to do something like the Men in Black, different times the Men in Black visited people, I would get a lot of information about that. I would get information about claims, I would get videos about claims, MIB caught on film. So I would get video footage of the thing that I showed you guys earlier, was this Canadian kind of walk, or those two guys walking into this hotel. And I would get, you know, kind of goosebumps. I mean, even though I don't subscribe to these beliefs, I still kind of, you know, get those like, ooh, spooky, like goosebumps kind of feelings, you know, when it's you know, it is still a good story. And as I'm learning more about it, I'm gonna, oh, well, I read about this guy, so what did that guy say? So I'm gonna go search that guy, and I'm gonna go further and further and further in one direction. But I may not think to ask the Google, MIB debunked, or MIB counter arguments, or if the MIB aren't real, what would they be? Or does the government monitor citizens this way? Does the government silence citizens this way? So I'm not even looking for that, because I already have an idea in my head, and that idea is going to color what I'm actually going to search. So I don't think it's like a deliberate cherry picking kind of thing. It can be, and I don't think it necessarily always is, if that makes any sense. This light is getting there. All right. Let's see. There is an astrophysicist who thinks Oumuamua was alien technology because of its unusual characteristics. I mean, that's great. Like, that's interesting, is what I mean. That's very interesting. But I would be interested in what other astrophysicists have to say. So not just one person, but can they reach a scientific consensus? Can anybody try to recreate it? Even recreating it as a, what am I thinking? Like digitally, being able to recreate it as a, not a game, a simulation, on a computer simulation, you know, would they be able to do that? That would be interesting. Again, I think we should investigate this stuff. I don't think that it's, oh, we should just ignore it, or those people are stupid. I think we should honestly investigate it. But I don't, but it again depends on how many people would be interested in actually following this investigation. Would anybody change their minds about it? Is it worth the time of all the astrophysicists? You know, when you said there's an astrophysicist, because that astrophysicist might have the time and or the interest. You know, other people that are this astrophysicist's colleagues may not have the time or interest to do it. And I think that's an unfortunate thing. And for any of us that are not astrophysicists, you know, we would have to learn a bit more before we could even try to assess, well, actually what this astrophysicist said totally makes sense, or actually it totally doesn't make sense. Yeah. Let's see. You're nice to her. You try to listen to her. I try very hard to keep an open mind and won't judge people, but I will do that. I genuinely suspect she's a paranoid schizophrenic. Yeah, and in that case, I think, you know, some of the conspiracy theories fit really well with that, unfortunately. I think they do exacerbate the symptoms of paranoid schizophrenia. Let's see. When your dice start speaking Mandarin, run. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Just ask sometime. Just be like, today I want to eat... just whatever, like today I want to eat hamburgers, how, and ask your dice that, and if the dice are like buha, then maybe you're being listened to. Let's see, if you're mentioning QAnon would give us advertising. So that's true. Anything we talk about in these videos, I don't know about that for you guys necessarily. I know about that for me, and I know about that for tags. So when you guys are in the tags, if I put QAnon in the tags, then if I also put advertisements on my videos, those might be advertised to you. And I know that when I speak something during this conversation, usually stuff that if I close this and then I open YouTube again, the recommended videos change based on what we just had a conversation about. But I didn't know that happened for you guys too. So sorry about that. Because there's nothing in here that's about QAnon except for a verbal thing. Because it's not in the topic. It's not in the, like, the topic title. and it's not in the tags. So I didn't know that that would trigger that for you guys too. I get ads for Grammarly mostly. I get a lot of ads for Grammarly too. I think our ads might be different because I don't know, honestly. I think so for the advertisements that I watch on, let's say, Telltale, right? Telltale has most people, when they see ads on Telltale's videos, they'll talk about, oh, I got a Jehovah's Witness video advertisement. Oh, I got a PureFlix advertisement before this video, something like that. For me, it's always something like Yogyo, which is this app that you use in Korea that a bunch of cafes, and now I think they're putting convenience stores and restaurants, they connect with them, and Yogyo they send out drivers. So if I have a restaurant and I don't hire anybody who does delivery, I receive an order, I make the order, and then one of the drivers from Yogyo, the app, will pick it up and send it. I guess it's kind of like Uber Eats, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I've never used Uber Eats, but that's my understanding of it. We don't have it here. So those are the ads I get. They have nothing to do with Jehovah's Witnesses. They have nothing to do with anything like that. It's always like some live streamer that has an ad for League of Legends or something. It has nothing to do with whatever the person wrote in their descriptions or the title or the tags. So that might be the same situation that you're having, Menno. And so I think that, I know Grammarly will advertise to just everywhere. As long as you're typing in English, they'll advertise. So I get some of those advertisements, and then you might get some local advertisements that have nothing to do with the video. So that might be why. Can't you just fly over the ice wall and look down at it? Who? Me with my private jet? Right? Because they're going to tell you that nobody, like commercial flights won't do it. And then what? You with a private jet, you're going to get shot down by the government. That's what they're going to do. They're going to shoot you down. They're going to warn you to get out of the airspace, and then they'll threaten you, and then they'll shoot you down. So that's the flat Earth response. Let's see. All right. I think we're kind of there. Compassionate, empathetic, non-judgmental, good. Maybe those Earth layers are our alternate Rick and Morty dimensions. I don't know necessarily. I wouldn't say so, because the Earth layers are they're in the 3 dimensions already, so they're not extra dimensional. You know what I mean? Extra dimensional is like, right now in my space there would be something in like a 6th dimension that I can't interact with or anything, but it would still be in this space. That's an extra dimensional thing. So in this idea of like extra dimensions, it means that in my room right now there's a bunch of stuff that I cannot see. But in terms of the Earth layers, these are like extending outwards still in like the what is it, the X and Z directions? Or no, the X and Y directions, right? And also Z, because there would be mountains and stuff too. Yeah. Hopping to the store because of gate recognition. Oh, okay. Okay, I got you. Flat Earthers, like other conspiracy theorists, use it to promote Christianity. Thus, I automatically dismiss them. Even when I was Christian, I did this because it was obvious they were trying to preach instead of teach. You know what? I would disagree with that. There is overlap with Christians and flat earthers, or flat earthers and Christians. I feel like a lot of flat earthers use it to promote themselves. That's what I would feel is a little bit different. Yeah. That I figured it out and I put it together and I'm so great because I'm showing it to you and I'm enlightening you. And some of them literally say that. There was this one guy, I forget his name, but he said something like, you know, I'm the one that's the smartest guy in the world because I figured this out, and you're smart too because you're listening to me. He literally said that during his video. You know, this is not like a one-off thing. It's like there's one guy, I guess he has this the biggest flat earth discussion group on Facebook, And I know that because he won't stop saying that every time somebody interviews him, or he goes to somebody and like he's recording this, and he's like, he'll just go and be like, hey, so have you heard of the flat earth? Well, I run the biggest flat earth discussion group on Facebook, and blah, blah. And he just does it to advertise himself. That's it. You know, there's no discussion, there's no anything. It's not even about the flat earth necessarily. It's about, look at how amazing I am, because I figured it out, and I host this group, and I'm the admin in charge of this amazing group, and I'm the one that does it. So it's interesting. Same with Mark Sargent. If you hear him talk, it's all about what I did. And I mean, he even has a shirt that says I am Mark Sargent, and he walks around wearing that, you know. And then the other guy, I forget his name. He's gonna be, you know, if he's watching, he's mad that we forgot his name, but he's mad because he thinks he's the one that figured it out first, and that Mark Sargent is piggybacking off of him and stole his thunder. So he's not, like, if it was really about the flat earth, if it was really about Christianity, they would be happy that more people are hearing it, but they're not. They're talking about, well, I lost recognition because of Mark Sargent, and Mark Sargent's walking around advertising himself, and this other guy's walking around advertising his Facebook group. They're not. I think that's why there's so many disjointed concepts of the flat earth map, because they don't care. I don't think they really care. I think they're using it as a way to say, I'm superior to you because I'm not brainwashed, you know. Let's see. I dismiss things if your only proof is a Bible verse. Yeah, that's true. For argument's sake, let's say conspiracy X is true, but if a person talks to me about conspiracy X but throws in theological religious rhetoric, I'm going to dismiss what that person has to say, because I can't tell if they genuinely want to talk about conspiracy X and spread awareness, or if they're using it to promote their worldview. Yeah, I think if you don't want to be preached at, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. One of the things I told my student who likes to do the flat earth thing is I said, well, you know, start off with number one, asking if they care about the truth. Number two, asking if they were shown evidence that is supporting an other idea that is not necessarily in line with what you believe, would you change your beliefs in light of this evidence? And if they say yes, then ask them which types of evidence are they interested in, and then go from there. If they say no to any of the first two, don't even waste your time. You know, we've only got limited time here on Earth. Don't waste it talking to people that don't want to care, you know. Do I believe in the flat earth? I do not. No, I do not. There's no... one of the things that's fun that I tell the students is that a lot of this, like, foundational stuff for things like physics and math and everything, you could do at home with the right equipment, but it's like within your grasp. Like, you could do it at home. And even for our ideas about the earth and its shape and our position in the solar system and you know, where does the sun go, and do we go around it, or does it go around us? A lot of this was like reasoning after observation. It wasn't like, oh, let's do a bunch of complex math. It wasn't a bunch of, you know, let's get into a spaceship and look, you know. This was like reasoning, and after just looking, like, oh, the moon does this thing. Oh, during an eclipse, this thing. Huh, you know, that only makes sense if the moon goes around us and we go around the sun. Okay. And that, I mean, that's just kind of how this had started. Nobody really cared early on, you know. But we haven't believed in a flat earth for a while. Let's see. Just mentioned things in the vicinity of my phone and boom, advertisements. One time it happened when I thought of something. So for that one, that would be because something you were looking at might have been related to some other thing, or it's like it predicts stuff. Like if you like this and you like this and you like this, it can predict that you're probably going to like this based on the fact that other people, whatever. So I feel like that could have just been a coincidence, because again, one of the alternatives is the government has a brain chip in there, and that's going to be pretty big technology stick in your brain, you know. Only a little flat. Okay, like the oblate spheroid, yeah. Let's see. Dang it, I died looking at ice, right? I miss being able to send you limericks via super chat. Oh, you can't do that anymore? You can't send me money? I mean, you can follow me on Patreon. If that's what you want to do. You meant kudzu. Kudzu, the plant? Why are you guys talking about kudzu? Is that what you're talking about? And yeah, Menno, you're talking about the plant too. But is that what you're talking about, Brad? In conclusion, oh, okay, sorry. That's what you said there. That's what you meant. Conspiracy theories have the same effect as kudzu. Yes, they can overwhelm the natural discourse, I would say. And they don't really... They're kind of an invasive... Yeah, sort of an invasive brain virus, I guess you can kind of say. But again, we want to know... I mean, how to combat conspiracy theories, it's the same way how to combat kudzu. We need to understand how this invasive species got here and prevent it from happening again. How do we prevent it from happening again? Same kind of idea. How did these conspiracies take hold? What could we do in the future to prevent them from taking hold so easily? Yeah. Let's see. One recommendation to deal with a QAnon believer in the family is saying, I like you when you blank, rather than being judgmental, as you said. Yeah, one thing I've done, because I've spoken with people that do believe this, it's just to ask, well, you know, why might they do that? Did anybody say it? What else could it be? So one of them was like, and again, we'll get more into it when we do the video, but it was the star pointing down, like the main middle point pointed down instead of up on the Democratic National Convention thing. And so somebody had told me this is a satanic star, blah, blah, blah. And we try to, well, how do you know it's not just a normal star, whatever. And then I had to also ask, well, if it was just a star, I don't think you would have concluded that. So what else is pointing to this idea that every politician is part of a satanic cabal that sacrifices children and abuses children and stuff? You know, what other evidence is there? And so instead of saying, that sounds unrealistic, and I think that you are being, I think you're buying into somebody else's nonsense, ask instead, what other evidence do you have to support this conclusion, and just see how they kind of put it together, because there always will be more. Conspiracy theorists will always have more, and that's how a lot of these conspiracy theories take hold. It's a lot of things that are actually unrelated, disparate information, but we're really good at sensing patterns, and so we can actually put it together. I kind of tried to prove that with the number theory, or not number theory, numerology something. I think I took like the Quran Surah 9:11, and it was talking about, I don't remember exactly, but it was like we could twist it around to make it sound like terrorism, and so it was interesting. Let's see. Kudzu juice is delicious. Can't say that I've had it. Let's see. Alrighty. So Alan, it's hiding your stuff because you're posting a swear word. Remember, we do want to avoid posting swear words. So and other references to body parts as slang. Okay. Yeah. On that note, we're gonna end it. This took a very interesting turn, but that's why I like the live stream. It gives us a chance to discuss this stuff. There will be a video that is like an overview video about this, and it's going to be like, 8 minutes or something. See you guys later. Have a good day, and yeah, bye-bye.